The first signs were subtle, too subtle for me to notice at first. My wife, Emily, had always been affectionate, the kind of woman who would greet me with a warm smile and ask about my day. But something had shifted. The warmth in her eyes had faded, replaced by something colder, more distant. At first, I thought she was just stressed. Work had been hectic for both of us, and I convinced myself that she was just going through a rough patch. Then the late nights started. "I'm just catching up with some friends," she'd say, slipping on a dress I hadn't seen before, a little too extravagant for just a casual hangout. I wanted to trust her. I needed to trust her. But the seed of doubt had already been planted. The real blow came when I overheard her talking on the phone late one night. I had woken up thirsty and went to get a glass of water when I heard her hushed voice from the living room. "Him? Oh, please," she scoffed. "He can't please anyone, not even himself. It's pathetic. I don't know how I lasted this long." The words hit like a sledgehammer to my chest. I froze, my fingers tightening around the glass. She laughed, an ugly, cruel sound that I had never associated with the woman I loved. I felt like an outsider in my own home, listening to my wife mock me to someone else. The conversation continued, but I had heard enough. My body was numb as I turned around and walked back to our bedroom, each step heavier than the last. I lay down beside her later that night, staring at the ceiling while she slept soundly, as if she hadn't just ripped my dignity apart behind my back. I wasn't perfect. I had my flaws. But I never once imagined that the woman I vowed to love forever would ridicule me so heartlessly. The doubt that had been a quiet whisper in my mind had turned into a deafening roar. And I knew, from that moment on, that I couldn't ignore it any longer. Doubt turned into obsession. I couldn't stop replaying her words in my head. Every glance she threw my way felt loaded with disdain. Every conversation we had seemed forced. I wanted to believe that I had misheard, that maybe I was overreacting. But deep down I knew the truth. So, I did what any betrayed man would do. I started paying attention. Emily's patterns had changed. She spent more time on her phone, always angling the screen away from me. The late nights became more frequent, and the excuses more ridiculous. One evening, she claimed she was meeting up with her old college roommate, but I knew for a fact that woman had moved overseas years ago. The final straw was when she forgot our anniversary. Not just the date, she completely forgot we were even supposed to celebrate. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I began gathering evidence. I started by going through our phone records. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the list of repeated calls and messages to an unsaved number. The frequency alone was damning, but I needed more. So I took a risk and installed a small tracking app on her phone while she was in the shower. I told myself it wasn't about controlling her, it was about uncovering the truth. And the truth came crashing down on me faster than I expected. The app showed her location at a high-end hotel across town, the kind of place couples sneaked off to when they didn't want to be seen. My heart pounded as I sat in my car outside the hotel, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Minutes felt like hours, but then, like clockwork, Emily appeared. She wasn't alone. A tall, well-dressed man strolled beside her, his hand casually resting on the small of her back. She smiled up at him. My wife, the woman who once promised me forever, looking at another man the way she hadn't looked at me in years. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to storm up to them and demand answers. But instead, I just felt hollow. The pain was suffocating, but there was also a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't a one-time thing. Emily had made a choice to humiliate me, betray me, and treat me like a fool. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in the dark, planning my next move. I wasn't going to be the pathetic husband she mocked behind my back. I wasn't going to beg or cry or demand she explain herself. No, I was going to make sure she regretted every single word she had ever said about me. Revenge wasn't just about getting back at Emily. It was about reclaiming my dignity, proving to myself that I was more than the pathetic man she painted me to be. I refused to let her words define me. If she thought I was weak, incapable, and worthless, I was going to show her and the entire world just how wrong she was. The first thing I did was take control of my life. I had spent years putting my energy into my marriage, sacrificing my own ambitions to make sure we had a stable, happy life. But for what? To be ridiculed behind my back? I wasn't going to waste another second on someone who didn't deserve me. Instead, I focused on myself. I hit the gym with a newfound purpose, channeling my anger into every lift, every run, every drop of sweat. I had let myself go over the years, but that was changing now. Each session made me stronger, not just physically, but mentally. I wasn't just training my body, I was rebuilding my confidence, my self-worth. Then came my career. I had settled in my job, accepting mediocrity because I thought stability was more important than ambition. But not anymore. I started networking, putting in extra hours, and positioning myself for a major promotion. If Emily thought I wasn't capable of success, I was going to prove her dead wrong. And while I was reinventing myself, I kept playing the role of the clueless husband. I pretended nothing had changed. I still kissed Emily goodbye in the mornings, still asked about her day, still let her believe I was the fool she mocked. She had no idea that I knew everything. But I wasn't just working on myself, I was working on something much bigger. Emily had no idea that I had quietly met with a divorce lawyer. She had no idea that I had gathered every piece of evidence I needed to destroy her in court. Bank statements, hotel receipts, phone records. I had it all. And the best part? I had managed to move my assets into a separate account without her even noticing. But I wasn't stopping there. I wanted to make sure she felt the weight of her betrayal. I started dropping subtle hints, little cracks in the perfect illusion she thought she had created. I began staying out late, dressing better, smiling more. I knew it was getting to her. I could see it in the way she started checking my phone when she thought I wasn't looking, in the way she suddenly became interested in where I was going. And then, the moment I had been waiting for arrived. One evening, she came home early, probably hoping to catch me in some kind of wrongdoing. Instead, she found me dressed in a sharp suit, sipping whiskey like a man who had the world at his feet. "Going somewhere?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. I smirked, taking my time before answering. "Just meeting some friends." It was the first time I had seen real doubt flicker in her eyes. She had no idea that everything she had done was about to come crashing down around her. The night of my grand finale had arrived. Every piece was in place, every detail meticulously planned. Emily had spent months mocking me, cheating on me, and treating me like I was nothing. But tonight, she would realize just how wrong she was. I had arranged for us to have dinner at her favorite upscale restaurant, the kind of place she loved showing off at. She thought it was a random romantic evening, an effort on my part to rekindle whatever was left of our marriage. Little did she know, this was the night her perfect little world would collapse. She arrived looking stunning, dressed in a sleek black gown, her makeup flawless. It was almost laughable how much effort she put into impressing me when she had already decided I wasn't enough. As we sat down, I made sure to play my role perfectly, charming, attentive, everything she used to love about me. She was eating it up, clearly enjoying the attention. "You've been different lately," she mused, swirling her wine. "More confident." I smirked, just realizing my worth, that's all. Before she could press further, my plan fell into motion. Right as we were finishing our meal, her phone buzzed on the table. I gestured for her to check it. She hesitated, but curiosity got the best of her. The moment she unlocked the screen, her face went pale, because right there in her messages were all the texts she had sent to her lover. Only this time, they weren't private. They had been forwarded to everyone. Her family, her friends, our coworkers, even her boss. I watched in satisfaction as horror washed over her. She frantically tapped at the screen, her hands shaking. "What did you do?" she whispered, barely holding it together. I leaned back in my chair, completely relaxed, just making sure everyone sees the real you. She looked around, realizing that people were starting to check their phones. Murmurs spread through the restaurant. She was unraveling before my eyes, panic setting in. And then I delivered the final blow. I placed a manila envelope on the table and slid it toward her. "That's your copy of the divorce papers," I said, keeping my voice steady, along with a full breakdown of how I moved every last cent out of our shared accounts. Her lips parted in shock. "You. Oh, and don't worry about the house," I cut in, my voice dripping with satisfaction. "It's in my name. You should probably start looking for a new place." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No pity, no guilt, just the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. She had spent months laughing behind my back, mocking me, betraying me. But tonight, I was the one walking away with everything. And as I strode out of that restaurant, leaving her humiliated and broken, I realized something. She was right about one thing. I had changed, and I would never let anyone make me feel worthless again.